My name is Maurice Soulfighter Taylor. The Advocate Sessions, pretty dope to be up here. Appreciate the invitation. So I'm gonna be reading some of my spoken word pieces. And I would like to invite you all to two of my spots. One is in Springfield, the second Saturday of the month at Poetic Recovery. It's at Make It Springfield, 168 Worthington Street. We start at 7 p.m. sharp, so be there on time. We're not waiting. Come down, you know what I'm saying, get your shine on. And also the third Saturday of the month, but this month is happening this coming Saturday at Hope for Holyoke in Holyoke. That's 100 Suffolk Street. We're gonna start at 7 o'clock p.m. sharp. If you wanna read, come at 6:45 to sign up. And we will end promptly at 10 o'clock. So if you listen to the title, Poetic Recovery, and I'm just gonna give you a little background of how I got into this. I've done a lot of grassroots organizing when I was 20 years old. Actually, my first performance was at 16 at Williams College. But when I got into recovery, there was no place to perform. People wasn't listening to like deep lyrics anymore. So I started doing a lot of spoken word. I was on the Hartford 2000 Poetry Slam team 18 years ago. Damn. And so, you know, I just realized like, I want to be in a place to perform where there's no alcohol and drugs, right? I don't want to waste my life, you know what I'm saying? And not to saying that people who drink alcohol are losers and stuff like that, or losers at all, but there's just a temptation. And we don't know till it's too late that we're alcoholics or drug addicts, you know what I mean? So I wanted to create a space where people can intellectually connect and build communities. And so that's what I do. And in honor of Women's History Month, I wrote this about 8 years ago. It's called The Sobering Truth. And so I got words from the audience. I can't remember exactly what the words were, but out of those words, this poem came, and it was a freestyle. And it goes like this. The Sobering Truth. Painful tragedies, shallow graves smother fetus. Nightmarish behaviors invaded the mother's peaceful night by loathsome asses, whose minds were pregnant with disdain, only content when women seemed too weak to kick back. Many retaliatory punches were met with wrists tied up, blouses ripped exposing her back. They cried tears of blood from whips rolled with aggressive thrusts that ripped flesh from bodies, while her children grabbed her legs and cried, "Daddy, stop!" Like many times, Daddy never listened. Her crime was reading, exercising her right to be efficacious. She did not weep. She stood there unabashed and looked her daughter in the eye and said, "We must not cry." Equality and freedom was not what she was fighting for. That was for educated folks. She was doing something. She was becoming more. She knew it was what she was supposed to do. No titles, no rules. Just what her soul beckoned her to do. Become more. Her daughter's heart was nurtured by her mom's desire, persistence, which became her compassion. Her dream would make her more than just a Califian dame. She would be Seguin, her mother proud. Her actions would be that of a pathfinder that would eventually lead to find roads that would carry women that were raped, beaten, ignored, just laughed at. Awesome this moment would be. Then grow to monumental proportions that will embrace all those that seek and willing to impress upon the world that every soul seeking to be more will be protected by a new egalitarian society. Thank you. Thanks. Now, this one right here, it's called The Great Find. I stumbled upon the great tree of life, standing there, her legs spread, bearing her mellifluous womb, from which the golden wisdom simply slowly flowed, Curiosity begged me to open my mouth wide, so I did, digesting wisdom, so that I could live in a brutal world wanting me dead. Like the dying flower, that spot on the wall, if I stay quiet, I am invisible. But my love is the crust compassion bites into, forcing me to replenish it through acts of kindness. Go ahead and laugh. This can't be felt, can't be touched. The physical can't comprehend. Viscous wisdom fuses life and fate beyond stupidity's tragedy, protecting my spiritual vitals from vicious cycles. Seems like to create awareness is my gestation. This cross comes without humiliation. And that's that one. One thing I do want to say while I'm looking for another one is child abuse and foster care, man. You know, we really gotta stop ignoring it. The auditor for Massachusetts they audited DCF, and over 100 and some people were raped or abused in some form within the last year. And I believe in one article I read that DSS didn't feel that it was pertinent, that being raped was a pertinent issue. But either way, we as people that live in our communities, we need to hold DSS accountable, or DYS, whatever it's called in your area. Because once these children become adults, many times they don't get the help that they need to get through these issues. And when they become adults, they're living with these tragedies, you know, these traumas, you know, and it's just ridiculous, man. Matter of fact, I mean, many times these children are taken from homes which the families are impoverished and they can't defend themselves, and they're taken for really stupid reasons, right? And then they're put in these foster homes, and then they're raped and they're molested and they're beaten and they're tortured, or within these systems, and there's no support, you know? And so I have a poem, and I'm looking it up right now, about that. It's called Monsters Beware. And I want to read this because people feel powerless to do anything, but we're not powerless if we work together. If we look at it as individuals, we're taking on as individuals, and yes, we're powerless. But as people, we're not powerless. And this is coming from someone who grew up my whole life in foster care through 9 different foster homes, who've been raped and molested and stuff. And that's why I read poetry as a healing mechanism, you know. And I offered open mics for other people who need healing. So, you know, it's a way for us to connect, you know. So look outside your window and look at all these children that are running around, you know, and ask yourself, you know, are they in foster care, and what's going on behind those doors, or what home they're in. We have to protect each other, you know. Monsters beware. This ever-winding sadness faded into madness, like a stream creeping into a river. Am I the acceptor or giver? From victim to volunteer pain, consuming agents to escape this game. Alcohol, weed blurred my fate, increased my rage, and covered a voided state. They came, they watched as I just sat there, fading into a world of nowhere. Smiling, cracking up with engineered laughter, too scared to face now, too scared to cross over to the hereafter. So I hid in the smoke scream of escape. Everything I did left my life raped of any intelligence I could have had. Moments with myself, mom, dad. The distance left me crying inside. That snowballed into rage, leaving me into a spiritual fetus position, praying for better days. As DSS took advantage of powerlessness, set me up to die, to fall. Who set up all this? I ask, I wonder who loved them. How did they deal with their problems? And if their family was their foundation, why did the social worker take mine? Leading me to humiliation and cycles of insanity. I was just a child. Walking through DSS, all of them would smile. Knowing my chances, they didn't give me the rules. At the end of the game, I'd be fatally hip and fatally cool. They thought I'd be dead and just another statistic. Instead, I'm clear-minded now, ready to rip this. I'm powerless, but together we're not. I'm going to help organize all the foster children America's got. And together we'll hold accountable this bureaucratic slave ship where if you don't go along, they dump you on the mounds of files on the forgotten strip. Monsters beware. And you know, activism is hard, man. You know, it's not a poor man's game. You know what I mean? I gave up activism like about 4 years ago, realizing that in this area, when we look at like all the racism and stuff that's going on in this country, in this area and throughout the countries, it's easy to talk about racism as something that's on the wall, but when you start talking and pointing to individuals about their racism or their issues, they get mad at you. You know, it's like, what? You're talking about me? Like, yeah. And here's the thing, like, people think racism is bigotry, and it's not. Racism and bigotry is two different things. Racism is a systematic way of behaving, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, I guess, you know, there could be individual racism, you know what I mean? But bigotry is where you get to the name calling, where you want to fight someone. You know, people stop at, well, you know, racism is like when you're a certain race and you think you're better than someone. Well, that's not just it. That's like a small part of the definition. You can take it out of the full definition, but it's not just that. It goes beyond that, right? Like race prejudice plus power, right? So if you are of a particular race that doesn't have any systematic power, you can't be racism because you don't have any ability to take anything away from anyone. You know what I'm saying? Take their homes or their jobs, keep them from getting a home, keep them from getting a job. You know what I'm saying? And so I went through a certain period of time where people in this area didn't understand that, even though they were activists. And so I was like, I don't want to be an activist no more. I give up. And I just do it my own way. So I call myself a grassroots cultural activist, if that makes sense to anybody. So this is called The Activist. I drop lines like T-Mobile, that's why I'm global. My flow's like Chernobyl, toxic. I'm not noble. Born in poverty, the rich robbing me before I could speak. Now I vlog and tweak. To make people think, do we divide or link? Like a chain that spin wheels so we can move and win? Failure's not an option. I'd rather death than copping to adversaries. My depth is legendary. From Columbus to Bush, slavery they push. For plantations to privatize prisons, to be free is my vision. I spit rhymes like sperms because it's my term to take your brain, the eggs, slay the liars instead of being a clone. Slavery ended, not postponed. Like a game being played, justice was delayed. So take it, organize it, make it available to all folks, even those that don't vote. And so that's The Activist. And this one's called The Evolution. This has to be the shortest poem I ever wrote. The Evolution. It's not the color of man, but the heart of man that must free the brother man, which is all of us, man. The Evolution. And yo, Chris, come on, man. We're gonna do a freestyle. I met Chris, how long ago I met you?
Probably like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, and where did we meet at? Do you remember?
The Thirsty Mind open
Thirsty
mic.
Mind. Okay. Yeah, I was doing part of recovery up there.
Yeah.
You know, and let's see, what song we gonna do?
Knocking on Heaven's Door?
Okay.
Yeah.
We could do that. Yeah. Knocking on Heaven's door. every day we walk this world, many of us struggling in many different places. We come in different colors like shoelaces. Some skinny, some fat, some long, some shorter, but in the end, if we live together, we're stronger together. But so many of us found no choice but to give up. Where I live in Holyoke, the paper city, the opiate epidemic has so many people knocking on heaven's door. After Vietnam, after World War II, many black people on heroin pointed to just called criminals, laying on the street, knocking on heaven's door. But 2018, it's a health issue. Bless you. We must all get up. We must all be loved. We must all be supported. Because we're knocking on heaven's door. I remember walking in the park. She sat there on the bench. She was crying, her tears streaming down her eyes. I was caught by surprise. She looked up and caught my eyes, and I asked her what was the matter. She said her dad just died. Beside his body was his gun. Mother never buried him in the ground. I found in her this will to keep moving, but not knowing how to navigate these spaces, these places. And I remembered what it felt like being alone. I asked her who can she call. I gave her my phone, and she called someone in her family, and they came to pick her up. But I wanted to spiritually pick her up, and I told her my story, and I let her know that everything was going to be okay. She just had to keep moving. She just had to keep doing something. I gave her the only pen that I had, and I told her to find paper to write. Because our sight becomes clear when we dump this mess, this pus, when we let it out, when we ooze it all over the ground. Because if not, our soul continues to die. We continue to knock on heaven's door. Knocking on heaven's door. Knock. Get on heaven's door. Thank you. I want to get words from you all, and the words I get from you all, I want to put into a poem. And so, yeah, what word y'all got?
Waterfall.
Your vocabulary.
Oh, vernacular?
Yeah.
Wait.
Like, his weight was just astronomical, or like, you have to wait until I get ready.
Whichever way you feel.
Okay.
Fly.
I feel like a fly on the wall, wanting to fly like the greatest American hero, bumping into walls and passage.
Machine.
Genius.
You have to be an evil genius to find the passions through this crazy machine that has us going around and around. No, it's not. All right, so the words I got was waterfall, growth, vernacular, wait, fly, passage, machine, and genius. Wow, it's crazy because like I'm like looking at 5 different paths, and sometimes I get words and I'm like, I don't know where the hell I'm gonna go with this. I get it. I get it. I mean, I understand whenever we turn on the news, it's just so crazy. These school shootings and these bombings around Austin, Texas. But check this. There's good things that's going on in the world still. Waters still fall over rocks. Beautiful waterfalls. And I understand, I mean, look at the young man that continues to help the older lady across the street. There's some things that never change. And even though you don't like his vernacular, listen to the words that he speaks. If you didn't judge so much, he would teach you. And I understand how you weigh things. You weigh things by how they make you feel, but if your lens was just wider, maybe you'd feel the weight of the love of a very short poem written by a woman who sits in the shelter with their child, not understanding how to navigate this new city, but willing to learn, patient to rise. For one day she will be the operator of this machine. This machine that has shut down at every door that she's opened. This machine that really hasn't broken down but has been turned off by those who are afraid that she will master it. You don't always have to be a genius to run the ship. I mean, just look at who's running the ship already in 2018. Donald Trump, but this ain't about him, but then again, everything that we do right now is about him. Because there's a fear that our healthcare may be gone. There's a fear that every little thing that we do will become a crime, will be criminalized. But I believe that in order for us to have safe passage, we must open up the doors to our mind and our hearts and connect so that when the time comes, we can prove to each other that this society has grown enough. We can be the testimony to its growth. That this ugliness that once shadowed this nation is gone. But that can only happen through our actions. That can only happen through our acceptance. And it can only happen through our culture. It can only happen if we open up the doors to our minds and to our hearts. Because I'd rather we fly together than individually be flies on a wall, soaking in all the stories and just wondering and wishing if we took action, things would be different. I guess that's a good way to end it, right?